We're about halfway through 2024 and I've seen a little over 50 new releases. Some good, some bad, well, quite a bit of bad, honestly. Yet there are plenty of great films out there, from small independent projects to big budget blockbusters. If you're a bit behind on watching the latest films and need an idiot's opinion on what you should prioritize, then maybe this video will lend you a hand. I'll be listing my top 10 favorite films I've seen so far this year, while also letting you know where you can watch these films if they happen to tickle your fancy. Some of these films I've talked about in greater length elsewhere on the channel, so feel free to check out those full reviews I'll be linking above and below if you'd like to hear more. Before we get into the list, how about some quick honorable mentions? Orion in the Dark takes Charlie Kaufman's trademark quirkiness and existentialism and applies it to a pretty charming children's tale about overcoming your fears. Wicked Little Letters shows us a hilarious and expletive-filled feud between two polar opposite women in 1920s England. Sometimes I Think About Dying touches on social isolation and depression in a way that covers both the good and bad of monotony. The Book of Clarence dissects what it means to be a messiah in a visually interesting and satirically hilarious side story running parallel to the time leading up to Jesus' crucifixion. And Drive Away Dolls is just a simple, fun road trip crime comedy complete with basement makeout sessions, aptly named gay bars, and penis plaster casts. All of those films are a good time, but let's go ahead and get into the headliners, starting with number 10. Hot off the heels of playing one of the funniest comedic roles of the decade so far, Ryan Gosling finds himself as a stuntman trying to solve a crime and win over the heart of a director in The Fall Guy. This is one of the better cheesy action comedies that actually manages to deliver on both action and comedy fairly well. Gosling is of course stellar, with his chemistry with Emily Blunt feeling both charming and believable. Not only is the film a love letter to the kind of silly action films we don't seem to get much anymore, it's also a loving tribute to the underappreciated roles on film sets that make the magic happen, particularly stunt performers. It almost made me miss my days on set until I remembered the 16-hour shifts, the shady payment processes, and nearly getting hit by cars while putting those stupid yellow signs up. My biggest fear was that this film would lack many practical stunts and just completely undermine the profession, but no, there's actually quite a few legit set pieces that helped ground the film with its intentions. The comedy is fairly solid, not being overtly obvious or lame while still being kind of corny in an endearing way. I think this was the definition of a crowd pleaser that did not get enough love while in theaters. If you're looking for something simple yet not low effort, be sure to give this one a watch. We've got another solid action flick in Monkey Man from star and first-time director Dev Patel. A straightforward story of revenge is elevated by the injection of poignant Indian culture, a tantalizing soundtrack, and some highly entertaining fight scenes. Patel shows true competence and talent as a director here, rarely ever settling for mediocre shot compositions or transitions. These action sequences are gritty, bare-knuckle, and highly stylish, really scratching the itch John Wick left us with. But don't think of this as a John Wick clone, as there is so much unique identity to the film. The film touches upon the political climate in India while also taking time to showcase marginalized communities like the Hijra, transgender warriors devoted to the belief in the third gender. The story can be a bit messy at times, but I think that also fits well with the rough and tumble aesthetic. It's one of the most unique action films you'll find this year, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Films centering around life during the pandemic often feel very gimmicky and cheap to me. However, Stress Positions manages to take the setting and use it to form a film that captures the stress and restlessness that came with lockdown in a fairly funny and kind of depressing way. The film follows germophobic and freshly single Terry looking after his injured Moroccan model nephew Balul while trying not to go completely insane. It's quite a claustrophobic film that manages to utilize its uncomfortable nature to pretty solid comedic effect. None of the characters are exactly likable, but there's something about them that keeps you watching. They are honest representations of the frustrations that came from being cooped up inside for a year, covering the spectrums of seriousness we all saw during that time. The characters do bad things, but you can understand where they're coming from. That desperation to live the life they want while forces beyond their control hinder them. What makes the film so smart is how this is tied into concerns beyond the pandemic. Religion, gender, identity, and responsibility for others all share common experiences of repression. The script elaborates on these ideas through biting, witty dialogue courtesy of first-time director Theda Hamill, who also edited the film and composed its magnetic soundtrack. I know we all want to forget those few years, but I think they're worth revisiting in this weird, chaotic, aggressively horny film. Now for the film that left me with the most to think about, I Saw the TV Glow. This sophomore outing from Jane Schoenbrunn details the coming-of-age journey of social outcast Owen, whose interest in an old television show takes him down a haunting path. Of course, that's just what's on the surface. Underneath that is a tale of identity and the suppression of accepting yourself for what you know yourself to be. I Saw the TV Glow is one of the most beautiful films I've seen this year, both in neon visuals and underlying themes. It's a somber reflection of early millennia suburbia, which serves as a backdrop for a depressing yet underlyingly hopeful story that is sure to resonate with those struggling with being accepted while also accepting yourself. Some may be turned off by the film's hesitance to be more approachable with its messages, but that's not to say you won't be able to walk away with something. The surreal horror comes from the fear of conforming to one thing all your life, only to find out you've been lying to yourself all along. Yet there's still time, the realization of which offers a sliver of warmth in the cold, disillusioned world the director captures. It's a complex film with a heavy but poignant spirit that won't be for casual audiences, but if you're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more artsy, definitely give this a watch. And if you need something a little lighter, may I direct your attention to the next film. This film just tickled me in such an endearing way. Hundreds of Beavers is essentially a live-action Looney Tunes episode about a down-on-his-luck cider brewer turned trapper trying to survive the tundra winter and win the heart of a woman he just met. Shot in black and white and utilizing a mixture of digital backgrounds, practical sets, and big-headed animal costumes, this is sure to be one of the most unique-looking films you'll see all year. The purposeful, cheaply made aesthetic is utilized in hilarious and ingenious ways, crafting a slapstick throwback that hits you with rapid-fire sight gags and physical comedy at an impressive rate, meaning even if it serves you up the occasional dud, the film moves quickly forward onto the next joke. The upfront goofiness lets you know exactly what you're getting yourself into from the beginning, yet the film still finds ways to surprise you by continuing to bounce off the wall with cartoonish kinetic energy. This really feels like a film born to be a cult classic, perfect for late viewings in rowdy theaters. If you and your friends need a fun night, maybe with a little booze, Hundreds of Beavers may be just what you need. Just in time for summer, Snack Shack is a slice of 90s summer nostalgia from Adam Raymayer, director of The Bunny Game. Maybe don't Google that one. In the film, two young entrepreneurs looking to spend the summer making as much money as possible find themselves running a snack stand at the local pool. Through this summer, their friendship will be tested and their lives will unequivocally change. This is such a fun, fast-paced, nostalgic comedy anchored by the chemistry between lead stars Connor Sherry and Gabriel LaBelle. Their volatile but heartfelt relationship reminded me a lot of Ed, Edd and Eddy, a couple of go-getters constantly finding ways to maximize their profits through various schemes. From horse races to basement brewed beer, the duo share an ingenuity and determination that is a blast to see played out and challenged. Their dynamic is constructed by a tag team of both stellar performances and a great whip-crack script that manages to balance both comedy and melodrama very well. On top of that, the film is a loving ode to the simpler days of childhood, filled with swimming, hot dogs, and love triangles. It's a cozy watch that still manages to pack an emotional punch, even if these swings can feel a bit overdramatic. Still, going from one of the most unpleasant watches of the 2010s to this wholesome slice of life certainly shows range as a director, and with summer in full swing, now's the perfect time to give it a try. The highly anticipated sequel to Mad Max Fury Road is actually a much different experience than its predecessor, but in a good way. Furiosa's focus on character over concept crafts a vastly different odyssey that still maintains the carnage and insanity that we loved about the prior film. Anya Taylor-Joy and Elila Brown do a solid job at portraying the tragic Furiosa through multiple stages of her life, each bringing something unique to the role while building upon the character's journey. Then there's Chris Hemsworth delivering a kooky, unhinged performance as Dementus that steals the show whenever he's on screen. While there's a much more prevalent reliance on CGI effects this time around, I think this gives the visual style of the film a warped, punk vibe that accurately reflects the insanity of the wasteland. The action is still gloriously over the top with no shortage of impressive stunts and set pieces to gawk at. It's a tad messy, but I still think it's one of the most fun and creative films of the year. Like Fall Guy, this was severely underappreciated in theaters, so if you can manage to catch a showing before it leaves for streaming, I highly recommend it. And in case you were needing more brutal desert stories, here's Love Lies Bleeding. The sophomoric outing from director Rose Glass follows an aspiring bodybuilder and the daughter of a local crime lord falling in love and getting into a messy conundrum filled with blood, death, and drugs. This is both a sexy and grimy crime noir that manages to capture the right amount of pulp to create a highly entertaining, aggressive good time. Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien's erotic but highly combustible relationship is full of lust, insecurities, and deceit, which makes each progression in their companionship magnetic and stressful. The dusty, dirty aesthetic only adds to the stress, creating a rather isolated setting where you truly believe there's little hope or justice to be found. It definitely gets a little out there, taking some big swings by the end that may not be everyone's cup of tea, but personally, I loved it. Honestly, this has been a great year so far for female directors and LGBTQ stories, and in my opinion, this is one of the best. Hope you aren't sick of deserts just yet, because we've got one more for you. Dune 2 was an astounding revelation for me. I wasn't the biggest fan of the first film, but Denis Villeneuve opened my eyes to the bigger picture and potential. This is a monumental achievement in sci-fi storytelling, easily replicating the large-scale space epic aesthetic not seen since the original Star Wars. The film follows the continued rise of Paul Atreides as the Chosen One, yet does a phenomenal job at challenging the character archetype by giving Paul a darkness to him that manages to be both shocking but understandable. Dune 2 is home to some of the most striking sci-fi visuals I've seen in a very long time, capturing an impressive sense of scale and style that elevates the designs of the original film tenfold. Colors pop far more with an expanded palette, lending itself to some truly striking imagery, like scenes taking place on the Harkonnen homeworld. By the end, I was convinced I was watching more than a film, but a moment. It's a triumph of big budget studio money and genuine artistic vision coming together to create a true miracle of cinema. It made a believer out of me, and it may just do the same for you. Truly, this film and my number one have been vying for supremacy for a while, and though these rankings could always change, let's talk about my favorite film of 2024 so far. The closest thing we've gotten to a perfect film so far this year in my eyes, Challengers is an electric, frenetic sports drama that has it all. Volatile love triangles, constantly shifting alliances, balls-to-the-wall camera work, and a playful, blood-pumping techno soundtrack, to name a few. Luca Guadagnino has been one of my favorite directors working today, still finding ways to surprise me with each film. Challengers may be my favorite from him yet, doing wonders for the sports genre by injecting a gripping, explosive relationship between three tennis players with varying goals and aspirations. The three float between closeness and backstabbing as the story goes on, with you never really knowing who to root for and who to admonish. The tennis matches are shot with such a creative intensity, genuinely making me wonder how they achieved a lot of these shots. The club-influenced soundtrack from 9 Inch Nails shouldn't work as well as it does in theory, yet its implementation is stellar, and I've genuinely been listening to it a ton since release. All of these elements come together so well, leading to an exciting climax that genuinely gave me an audible oh shit moment in the theater. Challengers is everything I look for in a film, and for right now, it's my favorite movie of 2024. And that's my list. What has been your favorite film so far this year? Be sure to let me know in the comments. If you like this video, I would love it if you could hit the like button and subscribe as we inch our way towards 1,000 subscribers. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Live deliciously and have a good one.